I am so excited for another episode with Kristina. The audience loves our shows together.
I know. That's why we're here in Ottawa for an Ottawa brunch. And it's 7:30 in the morning. And we're at a podcast studio before our brunch. Like, this is how committed we are to the cause.
Yes. Committed.
Where's Maria? Where's Maria?
Listen, no judgment against Maria.
No, she's asleep.
Okay. So we had talked about a couple different topics that we know people are interested in and that we have a lot of thoughts on.
Yes.
So for this episode, I want to dive into the topic of trades.
Yes, this one's juicy. But actually, okay, before we get into it, we actually should share that you and I both pay each other every month.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's important context. We're besties.
For sure. And the topic of trades came up for us, like, I think before we ever did business together, you and I had talked about, like, I had some trades with different people. You've had trades with different people. And we're best friends. We do business together all the time.
Yeah.
People think you're in my stuff, that maybe you're an accountant.
Yeah.
I might be a high vibe woman.
You are a high vibe woman.
But, like, we are in each other's stuff and we
Yeah.
still pay each other.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday, I got an invoice from you while sitting at breakfast. It was automated.
It was
to your
automated.
defense.
She's like, did you just invoice me? I'm like, I literally would have never done that. But yes, automated.
And I paid it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's such an important piece because you and I, like, we can actually dive more into this, but, like, you and I have also had trades gone wrong. So I've had trades gone wrong. You've had trades gone wrong? Yeah. And I think that that's, like, Chris always says, you know, contracts keep friends. And I'm such a big believer in that. So even when you and I do business together, like, you know, we have an amazing, like, accounting contract with you. We just pay it. We sign a contract, you know, when you sponsor our events or do your social or your podcast, you just pay it, you know, and we just, of course, like, there's always, like, nuance around some of these things. But I think it's just so common in the, like, online world, especially for people to be like, oh, I make websites and you do this and you should do this for me for free and I'll do this for you for free. It's just, yeah.
Okay. I think it comes, one, earlier in business, and two, because of a scarcity of money. Because I think the trade, like, locks in that person's going to pay you.
Yeah.
That you're not locked into, like, paying them because you're like, okay, I signed up for, you know, this and I'm paying them, but maybe they're going to short me on my bill or not pay my bill or not pay me in a little bit. Like, otherwise, like, if everybody was in abundance and had money, it's like, yeah, I'll pay you, you pay me. I think it comes from a fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it early on too. It just, like, I don't know if it's just, like, you know, girl math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's a version of that concept, but for entrepreneurs, where it's kind of like, well, my service is worth this and your service is worth this. So let's just trade it rather than giving each other the money. And, you know, I even find this sometimes with, like, early stage people, but even people, like, at my level or your level that are doing stuff where it's a little like, oh, like, you know, I'll just give you this and then you just give me that and we'll just do it that way. And I have such a fear, and it doesn't actually come, like, now it definitely doesn't come from scarcity. Now for me, it comes from, like, I actually really want to maintain this relationship. And I know I'm good for it for sure. And I would, like, literally, like, I feel like I have so much integrity. Like, I, like, would, like, die before, like, not completing something. But I think I'm just now so focused on the fact that, like, if this doesn't go well, it's very hard to rectify a relationship. And I've seen it. I've seen it where we've done trades with people. We've been unhappy on our end of the trade. And then the relationship's pretty much dissolved because it's a critique of their work. When rather, if you're paying for something, like tons of my friends pay the social snippet, it's actually really easy if they give me feedback. It's less like I'm not resentful about it. I'm like, you pay for that. Fair enough.
Yeah. Even on, like, the receiving end, I think if you're doing the girl math, it's like it still kind of feels like free work. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, you have bills to pay too.
Yeah.
And free work doesn't pay the bills. Like, it might get you the website you traded for or whatever you traded for. But, like, it's not paying the rent. It's not paying the team. And so you just think of it differently.
Yeah, totally. And, like, if you have a team, if you're not a solopreneur, but even, like, this goes to solopreneur as well, are you going to put your best people on a free project?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I have a friend who does, like basically exclusively trade stuff, like, all the time. Like, I'm like, how does anybody pay you any money? And she'll be like, oh yeah, I worked with this person and she's a consultant. And so she like gave a lot of free advice. That's like the trade. And she would get a service in response. And she would be like, oh my God, the service was so bad. This service was so bad. That service was so bad. I'm like, because they're giving you their C+ players because it's not, they still have to pay their team.
Yeah. Well, and even like I might put my A player on it, but I'm like, you have exactly 2 hours to do this. Like no more, right? Yeah. You don't get the same level of commitment. So I guess like to be very clear for listeners, number one is it doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Right. And it muddies the relationship, and that's what concerns me. Because now you just don't have the same bargaining factor, but also especially like I think of people that I know and it's like, oh, I traded one session with somebody. And it's like, okay, like the risk is low on that. It's like one session, like the contract or whatever you've agreed on just comes to a close so quickly, right? But it's like the longer something happens, that it's like this starts bringing in more and more in my mind, like risk of something to go wrong.
Yeah.
And I've canceled my contract for different services with you, but not because of you, but because of a stage I'm in. I'm like, I don't want this right now.
But you're
and imagine if I'm like, I just think of how our relationship would have been if I couldn't have canceled because I'm like, oh, I traded and still need that because you still need this. And okay, like, I guess I'm just going to keep doing it. Like, it probably would have ruined our relationship.
And I actually think this is probably another podcast topic, but like even just like, working with friends, like having like talking about like boundaries of like how you set that up. Because even I think too, a long time ago when you had launched your podcast, like you were like, I really want to go up to 3 a week, but the way you guys podcast is like, very labor intensive.
Yeah.
And so even our prices were lower back then, right? And you were like, it's really labor intensive. And at the point of business I'm in and what I'm using this podcast for, I'm not going to get the ROI of paying $3,000 a month at that point, right? Like for that many episodes and the way you were doing it. And you were like, could you do it with AI? And I was like, no, like that's just not the way we do it. But like, if you find someone to go do it, like, and you were like, I kind of know somebody. I'm like, great. You did that. And then over time you were kind of like, would you do it with AI? And I was like, I think we can now. Yeah. And there was no hard feelings around it. Like, and now we don't entirely edit with AI, but like, it's just, I think we were able to like really find a middle ground of like, okay, maybe the AI writes the notes, but we have someone do this. Or, you were like, hey, I need stories on top of that. And I'm like, okay, awesome. Like, let's figure that out. Right. Like it allows for a lot of conversation. But if we were in a trade where, your accounting services, like my taxes were dependent on that, like that would have a different feeling with it. Right. And so I think that's why I think, the one session thing, I've seen that done before. Right. Like I have somebody who, they'll be like, oh, let's do an hour. Like Tracy O'Malley and I are doing she's an hour Enneagram and I'm going to do an hour of LinkedIn training for her. And like, that feels good kind of for both of us. And, we had a really honest conversation about that, but like, I'd have no problem paying her for that. So I think it's like really finding that line, but I think anything more than that, it's too much.
Yeah. So my firm stance is I don't like trade.
Yeah. That's my firm stance too. I have a curious question for you. If somebody was early stage in business and they're listening to this and they're like, okay, like, yeah, you guys don't like stage, but like stage or trades, but like you have like some of your business, you know what I mean? So it's like, you probably like, you have some cash flow. I'm not in that season. What would you recommend? I know what you're going to say, but what would you recommend to people who need a website, who need copy, who maybe want to try different things? What would you recommend?
Yeah. Like the first thing I would say is, why don't you negotiate payment terms?
Yeah.
So that like, let's say I needed a podcast launch, right? But I needed accounting services. Like what if we just agreed to pay each other, but I had a payment term with you?
Yeah.
Right. So that's number one, is like looking at it like that. Two, how desperately do you actually need this? Because a lot of the time where you were talking about girl math is like, you're kind of justifying things. That's how I do girl math. Like yesterday I bought way too many clothes online because each purchase was under $100 and I'm sure the credit card bill will be crazy. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing math like that, like you start justifying things.
Yeah.
So I would also say you need to look at how badly do you actually need that? Mm-hmm. Right? Because with trades, often we're like, oh, that'd be nice. Like, well, I didn't have the money set aside to pay it, so I probably didn't prioritize that. And then from there, I would just, I think, look at how could I come up with the funds available to pay for this? Mm-hmm. right? There is options on credit. There's a lot of programs out there that I've been finding out about. Maybe that's another podcast episode, but different grants that are available and things like that. And maybe it's just waiting a couple months.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything always feels so urgent in the moment, right? Like it feels so urgent. Like I need this website, I need this copy, I need this, I need that. And it's not really like that, right?
One of my favorite questions to ask clients, but like also myself, is how could you achieve your goal without spending any money? Like I'm looking at it, and I don't actually think everybody should do that, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't like the result isn't what I'm not actually looking for you to achieve it, but it's to prove to yourself that all these things that you think are necessary to pay for probably aren't. Like, could you learn a little bit of copy to put it on the website? And like,
Totally.
how much traffic is your website getting right now? Maybe that investment in the copy is something that can come, 4 or 5 months from now. You just need a website up. Just different things like that.
Yeah, not everyone needs everything. That's something I think too. It's like you get into this, especially online world of business, and it's like you need to have a website, you need this, you need that, you need a podcast, and like literally, it was funny. I had a discovery call the other day, and I met with this company, and I was like, "Oh, I think you guys are too early stage for social." Like, if I'm just being honest, like there's just some other thing. Like, I would not outsource this in the season you guys are in. And we had this like really good chat, and then it automatically sent her a quote. And like our platform, and I was like, and she emailed and she was like, well, based on my conversation with Kristina, like I actually think we might be too early stage for this, but looking at these prices, like this is actually something I could really afford. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, great. Still like think there's some conversation to be had, right? But like I just think that like, I'm just very honest that not everybody needs everything all the time, even my services, right? And I know you're the same. And so I think just like, tempering that a little bit, like where it's like, okay, what do I need in this season? Like what's really going to move the needle? And then I should probably pay for it. I'm curious also, like, the Uno reverse of this question is, okay, so someone is in a trade. Or they're like, I hear you guys, but like, I still want to do a trade with a friend or what would you do to put guardrails up so it could be a successful trade?
I would still have the contracts. Like, the basics is I would still have the contract written up.
Yeah.
Exactly like you were paying each other, determining like the length of the trade, how long it's for, especially things that are open-ended. Like, you'll be in my membership and I'll be in yours. Like, oh my gosh, when do you cancel?
Yeah.
Like, what if you're not getting the value you want, right? Or it doesn't align, or you quit your business. Like, how many people in the last year have you seen do like 180s on their business, and then now you're stuck in something, right? So having a contract that clearly defines like delivery timelines, what's happening, it's so much easier for product-based business owners when it's like a physical trade of literally something, but for service-based, it could go on forever. So you have to clearly define it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think conversations are so important, like as well. Like even something that we've had the experience with Have Up Women, like early on, we would work with subcontractors because they would really want a ticket, but they couldn't afford a ticket. We'd be like, well, we actually could use whatever that is for High Vibe Women. So like whether that be a content creator or I'm just a vendor of some sort or whatever. And almost always was there some level of misunderstanding. I can only think of one or two where there wasn't. And I'm kind of like, we actually probably should have met in advance and not done this in an Instagram DM. Like, should have met and been like, okay, what are you looking for from this experience? What's a slam dunk for you? How do we make this like a great partnership?
Maybe it's not actually like the physical payment of cash, but it's like when you are paying cash, you go through the steps to get that clarity.
Yeah.
And like you really put the effort in, and that's what provides a better exchange.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Cool.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I don't have too many more thoughts on trades, but what I was going to say, guys, is like, if you're listening to this, I do think that, Staci and I are discouraging of trades, honestly. Like, and I think, as you're building your network, we're going to do some episodes about that, but like, you have to keep relationships kind of like top of mind. And I can think over the years, I've been in business almost 5 years. I've done many trades, like many. I can think of one or two good ones where like it felt like a win-win on both ends. And so I'm just like encouraging you. I've had messy trades. You know this, Staci. I've had messy trades. And so I'm just encouraging you to like just pay your peeps.
Okay. I still have 2 questions for you.
2? Oh my goodness.
I know. the first one, you are a master at relationships. And so how would you approach it if somebody came to you and wanted to make a trade? Like, give the listeners, let's say you're running an event, somebody wants to do a trade. How would you approach those conversations to maintain a relationship if you're like, I don't really want to do that?
If I don't think it's worth it, I will just be upfront about it. So I will say like, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out. I would love to offer you a payment plan. I'll honor the early bird, like whatever. Like I'll try to find a way to make it like easy for the person to say yes. Like, you know, usually I would say that there's some value, but it's not enough that I actually want to pay for it, you know? On the other side, I would say if it is a trade that I'm kind of interested in, like I'm interested in the thing, I'll give you actually an example. One of the photo booths for High Vibe Women reached out to us and they were like, we really want to do this at High Vibe Women. I want to be in the room. Are you open to doing a trade for it? And I was like, actually, yeah. Like it's a $500 ticket. That's probably what I'd pay for this booth. Should we just maybe exchange the money? Sure. But like it obviously, like, you know, this is what they had asked. And I actually went back to them. I said, yeah, I actually see so much value in this for the attendees. I would love to like cover your ticket. And more so, I will pay for the printing because I don't want you to be out any money. And and they were like, wow, thank you so much. That's so nice. I'm like, that's right. That's the right thing to do because I don't want you to be like, wow, these women took so many photos. I got this ticket, but then I ended up paying $700 in paper, right? Like I want to be totally clear that I owe you nothing, like at the end of this. And not in a mean way, just in a honest way.
But then you take the steps to be like, setup is this time.
100%.
This is like, we need this.
This is a
man
contract.
Or not man. Like this is,
Here's our contract. This is how we communicate with you. You're now on our vendor list. Like this is kind of our expectation. It's very like black and white. But I've also had people reach out. I had someone reach out like with another kind of similar kind of experience. And they were like, this is how much the printing would cost. This is how much this would cost. This is how much that would cost. And I was like, oh, actually the way you're even communicating this with me, I think we're not going to be good partners, right? Like if that's also a piece of it, right? The other person came and they were like, I really want to be in the room. And I was like, okay, let's make this happen, right? Like let's try to find a way to do it. So yeah, I just think I would really just like have a lot of really honest conversations. And I always try to make everything win-win so that the other person feels really respected in it. Because it's easy for people to feel like, yeah, I definitely feel taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. My last question for you is, I think early on that for me, there might have been some scarcity in different seasons. And so often, or not often, but I remember a time that I suggested a trade instead of doing free work.
Yeah.
And you and I are like masters at doing free work for people.
Yeah.
I think I love going first and building a relationship and just showing people that they're really valuable to me. But how do you approach doing things for free versus like the trades when you might be in a season where it feels like a little bit of lack? Did you suggest trades early on where you're like, okay, we're going to do this? Or were you like, let me just do this free work for you?
Yeah, you know what? I do a lot of free like consulting, like where I'll like give advice. I don't do a lot of free work. Like I don't, like I can think of a few times where we've done stuff for free where it's like we've done like a project for somebody or whatever. But I've always been able to really clearly see the line of like, this is just my thoughts and I'm just going to give them to you for free and that feels fine. Now I place a lot more value on that. I think different seasons of business call for different things. Like early on when you've got way more time and less money, that's the time where you get to like serve, I think, like in a particular way, right? Where you can like really show up, you're making your connections, you're building your network out. When you have a little bit more experience, not that I'm like super experienced, but as I've grown my business, I actually have way less time for that kind of thing, right? When people are like, oh, I really want to, like I think of somebody's like always in my DMs asking to pick my brain. Won't join my network or my community, right? Like won't like come to my events, like what? And I'm like, that's actually not a good energy exchange for me, like because you're not showing up. But when the High Vibe Women girls, people who come to every single one of our events to ask me a question, that feels like a no-brainer for me to answer. It's no problem. I'm happy to, right? So I think that's kind of the line for me on it, but it's really hard to distinguish. And like, I think where things get messy is when there's like deliverables involved, when there's like something to give. I've done many messy trades. One that like you had to unravel for me, which I know you remember, but like there's been some where it's been actually like totally like great and fine. But like even one I can think of with High Vibe Women where we did a content trade with someone and they actually came to us and they were like, you guys were horrible partners. And I was like, oh my God, that's like so against my values. Like she was like, I like didn't really understand what I was supposed to be doing. I wanted this in return. I wanted this type of recognition. Like, actually this is like the worst partnership I've ever done. And we'd given her a ticket in exchange. We still to this day feel strongly about the exchange, but we feel badly about the way we communicated. Because we weren't clear, and clear is kind. And what we should have done on the front end has been like, this is how this works, right? And the way she collaborates with people is different than the way we collaborate with people. And we didn't know that because we did everything via an Instagram DM. And like, so now I'm in like such a different season where like, I'm like, okay, let's get on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk this through. This is what this looks like. What questions do you have? What are you wondering? Here's my point person. You're going to be talking to Serena. You're not going to be talking to me. Like, I'm always like, it's just, that was such a good learning because Maria and I were literally horrified. Like, we were like, absolutely, both of us were like, jaw to the floor. And the reason we even had that conversation was because we didn't get our deliverables. And so we were like, where is this? And she was kind of like, you guys suck. And we're like, So it was just a really good learning lesson for us. Like it sucked in the moment, but it was such a good learning lesson for us because we weren't clear on the deliverables and we did a service to her with that. Right. And so we've made it right. But I just think it's a good learning lesson that like, you have to keep that stuff in place for your relationship at the end of the day, for your relationship.
Yeah. I think the most important part here is you're not doing trades with people that you don't care about, right? Because there has to be like some trust factor.
Yeah, don't do trades with people you don't know, guys. That's also another one.
Oh,
like if you're gonna trade, like if like you're listening to this and you're like, I don't care what you women say, and some like because that has happened to us where we've met someone like once or twice. And they're like, we'd love to do a trade. And I'm always like, I hate trades, so I'm pretty like, no. But one of them was pretty tempting. And we would have been in like a world of challenge. Like it would have been so horrible. So I'm so glad we didn't do it. But yeah, like you have to really know people.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not all our thoughts on trade.
Sharing. No, I am sitting in a moment of like, you really just lay it on the line for people. And I really love that. Like you don't hold back. You tell everybody like, hey, we did this trade. Like we sucked in this.
Yeah.
And this is what we learned from it. And I just have so much respect for you.
Oh, I love you. Well, more podcasts to come from me and Staci. This was so fun. You can find us both at our individual podcasts or find us together. We have so many episodes together. So we actually should make like a playlist.
Oh, yeah.
Would anyone listen to this playlist? I don't know, but we should make a little playlist. But yeah, guys, we'll link anything, any good resources in the show notes.
Thanks.